So I'll go ahead and get started while the presentation goes up. So first of all, it's absolutely absurd. I have 15 minutes, and I'm between Bezos and Andreessen. So you're all thinking I'm out there starting my presentation, and all I hear is you guys laughing and clapping for a 40-minute presentation. And all you're going to be thinking about now is what Andreessen is going to say. And I don't even get my presentation up on the screen.
I think you're frozen.
I'm frozen?
Nothing seems to be responsive.
This is a Mac. Macs don't do this. Wow. All right, well, I just powered down. But I'm going to go ahead and start while we do this. Could you power up if it's... Yeah. So my name is Mike Arrington. I write a blog called TechCrunch. I'm a blogger. I'm not an entrepreneur. And so sometimes I'm asked to give advice to people on what startups, what's hot, what's not, what trends I'm seeing. I'm certainly not going to do that in this crowd. How many people here were at South by Southwest? Not too many. But I saw what happened there when a journalist tried to talk and give advice directly to a group of developers. And so while I might have been that person after I saw that happen, I'm certainly not going to do it again. What I am going to do in the very short period of time I have is give you my sort of tactical level advice on getting press for your startup. And I think that'll be useful for you. And I'll be around afterwards, and I'm happy to talk to as many of you as possible as well. I also want to talk about the community a little bit. You're going to see a picture of my dog in a second, probably. At the very end. And then I want to go to questions for whatever time that they give me. So, hey, wait, hold on. So, yeah, this is fucking great. So, hey, hold on. Instead of embarrassing me for the rest of my time, can we switch that off of there onto here so I can see it and open it? Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much. Okay, so again, unless I get embarrassed again, I'll just jump right in. So the first thing is, I want you to tell us a story. And the example I would have up on the screen right now is a company called Some eCards. Have anybody heard of it? So I get an email from somebody saying, hey, a former writer from The Onion started an e-card site. And I know that that's kind of cool because I read The Onion every day and I've never sent an e-card in my life because they're all so lame. And so I go to the site and it has these amazingly funny, non-politically correct cards on it. And the guy just started the site in his spare time. He probably used blogging software to launch it. There's absolutely no technology behind it. But it's a really, really good story from my point of view. I told it. It got a lot of pickup and a lot of traffic to the site. That he's already raised money, actually before I wrote the story. But it's just a terrific story. And so not everyone can say that they're an e-card site written by a writer from The Onion. But people can certainly figure out what their story is that they want to tell. Yeah, that's it. Cool. Tell a story. Okay. And I'm going to show some of the e-cards. Oh, you know what? I lost all the stuff I saved in my browser, and there's no internet connectivity. But it's someecards.com, and I think you should go and see them. We only want to write stories that you don't want written. And actually, there's a caveat to that, which is, if I write stories that you don't want written, like Google is going to acquire YouTube in 3 days, which was the story that sort of made TechCrunch, I get a lot of traffic and a lot of credibility from that, assuming it's true. You generally don't want that written. So use that to your advantage. Think about it from our point of view. Think about leaking a financing early to a single blogger that you sort of like and want to write about your startup. Think about, in particular, if you have news about a competitor or another startup, and you can ethically tell me that news, or your favorite blogger, tell that blogger your news. And it helps us write a story. You may not even be mentioned in it, but we're going to remember that and down the road. All of our every single time we break a story, it's because somebody, one of you maybe, and there's a few sources in this crowd that I see, have told us something that maybe somebody didn't want us to know. And that either that helps you directly or it helps you indirectly, and either one helps you. We're looking for purple cows. Has anyone in this room read Seth Godin's book, Purple? Okay, good. Everybody in this room should read that and Innovator's Dilemma, in my opinion, because those are the two books that I sort of guide my thinking by. Purple Cow, the idea is that we see the same stuff every day. We drive along the highway, we see cows, 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 cows. What we don't see is a purple cow very often, and if you do see it, you're going to stop and stare. And so the first time you see a purple cow, you're going to stare at it. You want to be a purple cow if you can be. If you can't be, your marketing job and you're getting press is going to be an awful lot harder. The problem is, once you've seen a purple cow, the next purple cow isn't nearly as interesting. And so you can't just duplicate the publicity stunt that somebody else did. A couple of days ago, and I would play the video right now, except that I can't, a German startup called Popula sort of came onto my radar. I don't know if anyone read the post, but it's a sort of a socializer type site. It's just an open event site in Germany. They just started creating all these random videos with like funky sort of music and a bunch of pictures of people in the community, put them up on their site. The bloggers in Germany went wild. That kind of stunt wouldn't work here. It would have worked in 2004, but it worked really well in Germany. And it's called popula.de. Another example, oops, that's not the button I wanted to hit. Another example of a purple cow or disruptive technology is 1-800-free-411. This came along before Google 411. It's just free 411. But they took 6% market share. Very disruptive in the sense of the innovator's dilemma, and that new technology has come along, particularly sort of database technology, and allow people to provide a service that previously maybe couldn't be provided for free. Last night I wrote about Encyclopedia Britannica trying to find a business model with this sort of thing called Wikipedia looming over them. That's another example. And that's what we're looking for as press. Another example is of something I think is going to be disruptive towards Facebook, and I know that's a sort of a strong statement, is mobile social networking, and mobile in general. The mobile platform, particularly with the iPhone, is becoming extremely important, and I believe more important than any other platform you can think about today, including, say, Google App Engine and all the other things you can do. Mobile's important. So when I see something that embraces mobile, I get excited. In particular, I think Facebook has a critical weakness. I think Facebook is overly concerned with privacy. And I think that most of Facebook's users aren't very concerned with privacy. And if you can create a social network that reaches out to people and broadcasts their information, which is what a mobile social network should do, I think that you can win. And Facebook doesn't seem to be addressing this yet. So here's an example of something that I think is going to be very interesting. Now, this company isn't saying who they are, but they're going to launch this summer. Yank the leash, don't become background noise. When I got my dog a few years ago, and I took training classes with her, they taught me that when I'm training her to heel, sort of walk right next to me, don't sort of constantly pull on the leash, because the dog will sort of forget that you're doing it. That you need to yank on it, not hurt her, but yank on it every once in a while to sort of get her attention. That's what you want to do to me. You do not want to be background noise with me. You don't want to be emailing me every day saying, why haven't you written about my startup? Why haven't you written about my startup? Because I don't read it anymore. We don't even see it. It just, psychologically, it's not there. You want to make one single impact through an introduction or not that's interesting. And think back to The Onion site, Some E-Cards. Got an email, never heard about the site before, saying, hey, Onion writer doing e-cards. I was hooked, from that point on. However, you do want to be part of the conversation. So while you don't want to become background noise in the sense of I feel like I'm constantly being pitched by you, I want to know that you're part of the community and that you can give back as well. Twitter is becoming increasingly important, but every single developer should have their own blog, their own personal blog and their own blog for their application. And if somebody writes about you, whether it's critical or not, you should mention that and link to them. And you should talk about it. And if it's critical, you shouldn't become a troll back towards them. You should engage with them on an intellectual level and start a discussion. If a blogger or any journalist knows that you're going to link back to them whenever they write about you, that gives them an increased incentive to write about you more often. And that's something that, I guess, technically, it shouldn't affect our decision to write or not, but it quite clearly does. So always have a blog, always have Twitter, always be a part of the discussion. I mentioned Dig up here because Dig used to be a very important part of our traffic. Quite a few people that I knew, developers, would help us with Dig stories. They would submit them, and it was even without asking. That's a way for me to get to know you without you becoming background noise. And a lot of bloggers live and die on Dig these days, and so you should be active in that community as well. And of course, Reddit. So this is I just added this to show that I'm starting to eat my own dog food. Twitter annoyed the hell out of me for the first, year and a half that it was in existence. I mean, this is my monthly Twitter usage. I sent 7 Twitters in August of 2007. But you can see here, I started using Twitterific and Twirl. And last month and this month, this is only part of this month, I'm sort of Twittering, multiple times a day. The reason I'm doing that is because Twitter provides significant traffic back to our site whenever we post on something, or sometimes I'll just engage in a conversation. You should be doing that as well. And it shouldn't just be, hey, look at us, hey, look at us, hey, look at us. 90% of your Twittering activity should be, in my opinion, should be about things that have nothing to do with your application. And then when you hit them with your application, they're going to click through. How am I doing on time? Okay. I'm almost done. Embrace criticism. Too often, entrepreneurs, particularly first-time entrepreneurs, can't deal with criticism very well. It's certainly something I struggle with on a daily basis, and so it's just part of being human. But as an entrepreneur, you are almost certainly a very insecure person. And that's why meetups are so popular in our industry. We group together because you know that the people who are going to go to these meetups, or the people sitting in this room, are going to be, generally speaking, supportive of you. And they're going to understand why you didn't take that consulting job, or go on to graduate school yet, or do whatever it is, whatever opportunity you had to make money and to make your parents proud. Instead, you decided to do something crazy. My parents don't understand why I'm not a lawyer anymore. They don't understand what a blogger is. And so I have the same sort of insecurities about that, where I need to sort of group with entrepreneurs and bloggers all the time to reinforce that what we're doing actually is meaningful. So with that being said, you're going to naturally have a negative reaction to criticism. What you should do is embrace that criticism, sort of realize that the last thing you should be doing is either ignoring it or attacking it back. Embrace it, bring it into the discussion to a point, and that way other people will know they can criticize you safely and have honest discourse back with you. Now, don't embrace the trolls, though, and you'll have to sort of draw the line as to where, if you respond to every single criticism, people will also know that they can troll you, so you have to draw the line. An example of this is Ning. So in early 2006, I wrote this blog post, which had 98 comments, which at the time was a lot of comments on TechCrunch, and it was Ning, rest in peace. And I trashed this company. Now, it turned out I was somewhat wrong. And that's not the point. The point is that at the time I thought they were doing a lot of things wrong, and I wrote an inflammatory headline that paid off. And by the way, that's why bloggers write inflammatory headlines, although I'm trying to do less of it. But you know what Ning did? They reached out to me, they wrote about it on their blog, and they started a conversation. And now I'm friends with both Gina and Mark. And it's a really good relationship from my point of view. But what they did is they didn't just attack me back, ignore me, shut me out. They brought me in. A year later, I wrote a post called Ning in Full, which talked about how well Ning is doing. And a year after that, yesterday, they announced that they raised money on a $500 million round. So all signs are sort of pointing. Oh, I'm not suggesting that it's because of my post, if that's what at all. No, what I'm suggesting is that Ning continues to do very well. I was wrong, but they embraced people who criticized them. So whatever your opinion of Ning is as a business model, realize that they did at least one thing right, which is they embraced their own community. And that brings me to the last slide, which is our community. And this is actually the thing that I want back from you. Giving you advice is great, but I'd like something back, and that's to talk a little bit about what it means for us to be a community. And back in 2005, when I first started TechCrunch, there were no snarky comments, there were no trolls. It was just a group of people sort of talking about ideas, experimenting. A lot of stuff failed, some stuff, a very few things succeeded. But it was a really nice place to be. And I don't mean that in the sense of we were sort of just, blowing smoke up each other's ass. There certainly was some of that. But it was also just, you weren't afraid to talk about your ideas in public from fear of being attacked as an idiot or somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about. And that's what Silicon Valley is all about. And it's really important. And last year at TechCrunch 40 at our conference, Yossi Vardi, who is a very well-known angel investor in Israel, sort of spontaneously quoted Theodore Roosevelt from a speech he gave in 1910. And I want to read part of this because it's absolutely applicable to our community. It's not the critic who counts. It's not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood. And I'll let you read the rest. And if you just do a search for man in the arena on the internet, you'll see this. And the key point is that if you find yourself being nothing but snarky, and you find yourself leaving comments that maybe even anonymously just do nothing but attack people and ridicule them, ask yourself, what are you doing for yourself, and what are you doing for the community that you're a part of? And certainly it's easy to do. Certainly it's what all the cool kids do. But at the end of the day, we're not in high school anymore. At the end of the day, we're at a turning point in history. And it's important that we don't lose sight of the fact that 1,000 years from now, people will look back at this point as the turning point in human history, and that we're creating that history. And you all are part of it. You all are out there creating applications that 90% of which will fail over and over and over again, but the 10th one might be successful, and you have to remember that. And so all I ask is that before you write that snarky comment, before you write that trollish comment, think about how much more important it is to be the gladiator in the arena, even if you fail greatly, than it is to be that guy who just says, you're a loser, you're an idiot, anonymously. It's okay to criticize, but do it under your real name and spend a little more time writing out the criticism to make sure the community sort of, can become what it can. Something I'm really worried about. As the community grows larger, there's a lot more money, and there's a lot more personal attacks, and I think that to the extent we all can, we should try to do better. So I'd like to take questions for 5 minutes.
We have 10 minutes.
10 minutes, okay. And I think we have the 2 microphones, so. Start here.
You have a lot of power. It seems like everyone in this room probably thinks that you could help them in some way. How do you keep that from getting to you? Or do you keep it from getting to you?
I genuinely love the community. I think that shows in my writing. I genuinely love startups. Entrepreneurs are my rock stars, are my movie stars, are the people I look up to. A 22-year-old creating an application for the first time is far more interesting to me than Brad Pitt, for instance, to read about. And I think that because of that's my core grounding. I've just always have had a passion for startups and entrepreneurialism. That as long as I maintain that, I'll do well. If I think that if I ever get to the point where I think that my very small, tiny blog is so important that I'm a really important person, as I said in my April Fool's joke about suing Facebook, jokingly said that. If I ever really believe that, I think it'll show in my writing, and I think that I'll fail. And so hopefully it's more, I have an incentive to never think that I have some special place in this community other than the fact that I love it. And there are no barriers to entry to blogging. And there are a lot of great blogs out there, and if I ever got to the point where I abused any power that I actually do have, I think that I would ruin my own business.
Good to hear that.
Thanks.
Mike, earlier you said that you write the stories that us entrepreneurs don't want you to write, and I can personally attest to this. When we launched Phone My Phone, which was supposed to be a service to find your misplaced cell phone or escape a boring meeting or end a sucky day early, but you wrote us up as the efficient crank calling tool and then wouldn't link to us.
Well, just to be clear, you created an application, a web app, that allowed you to put a phone number into the web application and then say how many times it should call it?
To find your misplaced phone, right?
To find a misplaced phone.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's why I built it, because I couldn't find my phone.
No. The funny thing is, I did trash it in a joking way, but it turned out that actually some people are using it to find their phones.
Yeah, we do it. No, so the question here that I have is, when you're launching a product, right, and it gets branded as the efficient crank calling tool, and that gets you, Wired calling you on April Fools and, doing a story there.
Yep.
How do you turn that snowball around that's like growing into an avalanche of like this is what your product is for? How do you recover from that?
I think you're a special case. No, I think you're a special case. And let me answer the actual question, but just to be brief, I think you're a special case because that particular application would never have made it into TechCrunch if not for that angle. And that's why it's a special case. Because it's a web form that it's attached to, I assume a VoIP service. And that's just not that interesting from our point of view to write a whole story about it.
Okay.
Other companies, though, would have made it anyway, and our review sometimes is very negative. And that can lead to additional sort of coverage, negative coverage. I think if you go back to my original points, which is embrace criticism, and you have your own blog, and you say, wow, TechCrunch wrote a really scathing review of us. Here's a link. But I think they're wrong for the following reasons. Other press is going to see that. And at the very least, we're having a dialogue.
Right.
Now, that's one way to handle it. The other way to handle it is to not write anything, but just start saying, how those TechCrunch guys are all dicks in private events, which gets you nothing, by the way, and just makes us more notorious. So I think the better thing to do is to embrace it and discuss it, and I think other press will see that.
Okay,
so,
thank you.
Yeah.
So back in 2005, when we were all hanging out in your backyard, you sort of spoke of a vision of TechCrunch that you have far surpassed, and you've done amazing things, and it's really cool. But now that you're where you are, and now that the community is growing to what it is, I mean, look at this.
Look at all these people.
Yeah, I know. What do you see TechCrunch doing, and where do you see TechCrunch going to grow with the community as it grows? Where are you going to take what you created to take you and us to the next level?
I'm not going to answer most of that question, but I'll answer part of it, which is that what happens when niche audiences aren't so niche anymore, and they certainly lose their community feel. I mean, I spend an hour a day deleting trollish comments on TechCrunch now just to keep the discussion interesting and civil. And that's with roughly 1 million readers, say. But let's say we go way beyond that. It just becomes you look at /.dig and it's not readable, the comments in the community. And so what I'd really love to do personally, which isn't the best business decision, is I'd love to let Eric, my co-editor, continue to write TechCrunch, and I'd like to go start another blog that does nothing but writes about startups, like the true startups. Really everyone. Again, for the core audience, because I wrote about almost every startup in the early days because the community wanted to know about every single one, even if they weren't that interesting, just to, And today, the audience won't put up with that. And so 90% of the startups that maybe we would have written about 3 years ago, we aren't able to write about. I missed that a lot. Now, that isn't what's right for our business. What's right for our business is to keep, trashing CNET, trashing Wired, trashing all the big media, and attacking them as much as possible, peeling off as many of their writers as possible, and then selling, for a big multiple of earnings. And that's, certainly what Heather wants to do, our CEO, which is why, I hired her to be that person. But there's always this struggle, because if we ever lose sight of what we love, we won't be very good at what we do anymore. So.
So when should startups hire PR firms?
Never.
And do you prefer to talk to the hot girl from the PR firm or the founder?
There are PR firms that are very good. However...
Can you name them?
Privately, I certainly will name the PR firms that I think are good. But most of them are so full now that they can't take on any new business. And if they do, they're going to charge you a lot of money. $15,000 a month, maybe, something like that. So I would say that until you get to the point where there's so many inbound requests that you can't deal with them, you don't need a PR firm. For outbound requests, I think, and I really feel this way, have a Twitter account, have a blog, a personal blog as well, and engage with the community, go to events, and at the right time, reach out to the right press with the right story. Now, if you really feel that you don't know what I'm talking about when that happens, you just don't know what is the right story, when's the right time to reach out. If you really feel that way, I still don't think that PR firms are going to give you the right advice on that all the time. There are mentors around you that you can probably talk to that will help you with that. So, I'll tell you that, Paul and Jessica at Y Combinator are masters at that. So I write about most Y Combinator startups just because they know the exact moment to hit me with that first email, and usually within an hour or two, we're all over it. So, yeah.
Hi, I love your blog. I was wondering if you could comment on nomadism, and I don't know if it's like a common colloquialism right now, but it's basically where the employees don't go to a central office. And I was wondering if you could comment on whether you think it's viable for other startups in other industries besides blogging, because I know it's probably easier for bloggers to do that. Maybe it's tough, but.
Well, it certainly works for us because all of our writers are mostly sole contributors, sort of athletes doing their thing. But in companies that need, sort of have a lot of developers that need to do, well, honestly, I don't even know why I'm answering this question. I have no idea when it comes to like building large-scale applications if you need to be, distributed or centralized. I do know that WordPress, it seems to work for them. I think that WordPress is still decentralized, and obviously they do okay. So that's as far as I'm going to answer that question. I think everybody in this room is more qualified to answer that question than me. So.
All right, I'll try and bring it up again.
Yeah. We're done. All right, thank you very much.
Okay, sorry, we're having a quick break. Back at 4:15 for the last two speakers, Mark Andreasen and Peter Norvig. So try to get back on time at 4:15. Thanks.